Greetings everybody, Duckville here for game number 3 between these two brilliant players from Australia competing over at MLG Dallas, of course. In game number 1, we saw our Zerg player who's up the top left-hand side of Ohana. He had a little bit of difficulty with multiple Hellion attacks at all sorts of bases, roasting up drones. We saw a drone kill total over 100 during game number 1 on Cloud Kingdom. But here, we'll see if he is able to fend it off and perhaps able to take the victory to secure the win in this set. It is, of course, Team Immunity's Mafia. And down at the bottom right side, the Blue Terran here, who has been doing a fantastic job. Of course, we saw in game number 1 a fantastic mech style. I happen to say I've never seen him mech before, and then all of a sudden he throws down 2 armories, and it made my day. And then in game number 2, we saw a double proxy racks, a very Gumiho style double proxy racks into triple command center, into mech from NvRossi. But unfortunately for him, it was not able to secure a win there. And we'll see how he plays it out on this map. Of course, Ohana, a brilliant map if you like to mech, so, you know, maybe we'll see something like that out of Rossi for game number 3, but I don't know. What do you do at this stage of the game? Think of it for yourself. What would you do? You're at game number 3, you're playing against a Zerg player who knows exactly how you like to play. In fact, both these players, you know, you got to think about it from each of their sides. If you're Mafia, what do you do against a Terran player who is generally very formidable with his drop play, and of course generally his bio style that he likes to use? Of course, marine tank and that kind of thing is very common, but lately you've seen him doing some mech. What do you do? And then of course from Rossi's angle, you've been playing against this Zerg powerhouse who's been GM on the Korean server, and of course Mafia has done all sorts of crazy things in his games, but he loves the macro. That's one thing you know. What do you do in game number 3? Do you play your own macro style again? Perhaps go for some proxy action, or perhaps hit up that mech style? Because of course this map is quite favorable to mech. I mean, you've got a front door to the natural expand, which can be easily walled off and then just sort of sieged up for protection. You've also got a third base out here, which is protected by a little bit of a buffer zone, and then you can obviously throw down some tanks to protect it there. And that's the question you've got to ask. Do you go for that again, and, you know, perhaps be a little bit unprepared because your opponent might think you might go for that again, or you know, perhaps you'll catch him off guard? So that's a couple of things you have to think about when playing in the third game, especially when in a tournament like this. Of course, the winner of this game, whoever wins this one, will go on to face off against EG's Suppy. So that'll be a very interesting game. If it's for Mafia, he'll be able to bring out his ZVZ prowess, and of course, if it's Rossi, he can continue on with the style that he's used here against Mafia. So that'll be very, very interesting to see. Of course, that game will be in the open winners bracket round of 5, which is going to be also seeing our own Moonglade. I was mentioning all the players that went across to Dallas for MLG, and I completely dropped Moonglade off the list. I am sorry, Andy, but yeah, so we had a whole bunch of players just going across, so shout out to all of them. They have been doing a fantastic job. Some of them have gotten quite far, and of course both these two here have gotten almost the furthest, considering their games. Of course, Moonglade got seeded into the round of 5 and will be facing off against MC, which is going to be something very precarious to deal with. But these two players here have fought their way through to round 4, maybe even round 5 will go to one of them, and then they may even have to, you know, you never know, they may be able to get past Suppy. And I mean, I would certainly think that both of these players have the skills to take on Suppy. And then the interesting part after that will be the fact that whoever wins against Suppy will be facing off against the winner of Rain versus Liquid Sheth. And both of those players are pretty good, I hear. So that would be very interesting to see how these players, if they're thinking about this in game number 3 here, or if they're just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to focus on this game here. We'll be all good. We'll keep it all nice and simple. But speaking of simple, Rossi looks like he is going to go for a little bit more of a standardized style. Of course, we get a couple of reactor Hellions just coming out. He's going to pick up a starport, switch that across with the barracks, and get a Banshee coming out. The interesting question will be, is he going to go for gas? And just going by his gas tally at the moment, I think he may be going for cloak. And he'll pick up one of the Banshees and then get the cloak started very soon as well. As you can see, he's still got a little bit of extra gas left over. once that ticks over to 200, we'll probably see him pick it up. Once the minerals ticks over, is he going to do it? Yes. Alright, cool. So we are going to see him go into cloak for those Banshees. A couple of Hellions already out of the map, 2 producing at a time, of course, because of that reactor. He's going to take the top Xel'Naga Watchtower and just keep a quick eye on what's going on. Wants to know where that creep spread is going, how far it's going, and Mafia, of course, is a very good creep spreading Zerg. Of course, if you saw the likes of Scarlet versus Bomber, you would have seen Scarlet spreading the creep all the way down to Bomber's 3rd base, and even his natural expand by around, I think it was around about the 15 or 16 minute mark. Is absolutely incredible what she can do with the creep. Mafia can do the exact same thing, so don't be surprised if we see something come up like that, depending on how well he can control these Hellions that are rolling their way around the map, trying to deny all of that sort of pressure. But there is a Roach Warren coming up here, so looks as if Mafia may be preparing to get some Roaches out, whether that's going to be for a little push or whether it's just for the defense, who knows. But I'll tell you what, he is going to know very soon that there are going to be some Banshees popping out, because there is an Overseer just poking through. It's going to see the green lights in the dance party inside the tech lab that's on top of that starport. And now with the Banshee out, we do have one. There is going to be a second in a moment. There is going to be a little bit of an attack coming through. Now, of course, the general way that you want to play this out is you either want to split your forces up, send your Hellions in one way. They can either go down to the natural base here and try and harass, while the Banshees either go in split directions, take one to the 3rd and one to the main, or you can send both of them into the same spot to try and take out some Queens, and maybe if you can get past the Spore Crawlers. But Mafia, being a very well-versed player, is already aware that this kind of attack is about to commence, and the Spore Crawlers are actually just about to pop out in the nick of time. So Rossi is going to need to maneuver those Banshees out of the way so that they don't take too much damage. And now he's actually gotten the Hellions behind the extractors there, which is a very nice spot for them. Actually keeps the Banshees out of trouble for the time being, and we'll have to see how Mafia is going to deal with this. As we can see, he's got the one Queen here, which is able to help out with the defense against the Banshees, but the big issue is that the Hellions are on the ground, and they're still able to roast up all sorts of things, and the drones are off the mineral line at the moment. But here is a very dangerous situation for Mafia, but he does get the drones out in time, but they are still lining them up, and that is a little bit unfortunate there for Mafia. And now trying to send them back, he's trying to just split them all over the place. This is insane, the amount of micro between these two players, just trying to keep the drones out of trouble. And one Hellion is still alive, but that's not going to stick around for too long. And now Mafia will need to bring back some of those drones that he lost. They all went to a very interesting total here of 39 drones at one point there for Mafia. So he's going to bring some of them back. He's now back up to 45. Meanwhile, for Rossi, he did pick up a 3rd orbital command very quickly there during all of that battle, and is now sitting on a nice total of 53 SCVs right now. And he's going to go into a bio style. So along with a 4th command center very quickly. I do like that. So Rossi is going to play a little bit more of his natural sort of style that I have normally seen him play, which is to go into a bio style with obviously quite a lot of drops to come out from him. I'm assuming we're going to see that very soon as well. He does have a reactor on the starport now, which is going to help out with getting those medevacs out. Meanwhile, for Mafia, gases 5 and 6 are now on the way, so he's going to try and get his tech started. Of course, it is nice to have those infestors out for fungal growth on top of any medevacs that come out, and he will be able to see that the 3rd base is up and operational here. So no real sort of way to stop this just at the moment, just given that his opponent is going to have a nice little defense after taking down quite a lot of what Mafia had. So Mafia is going to get his macro hatch up. He's just going to drone, of course. Mafia, being a brilliant macro player, is now up to 70 drones at the moment. He's stopped at that number just for the time being. He's got, in fact, a 5th macro hatch coming up, which is very cool. Along with that, he's also got a couple of upgrades on the way from these Evo chambers that are providing a little bit of a wall. He has got melee attacks 2 and also Carapace 2 coming up for those Lings and any of those other ground units that might pop out, like the Banelings and the Ultras perhaps in the late game. But Rossi sitting on almost, he's got 1-1 on these bio units on the ground at the moment, and the tanks do not have their +1 just yet. It's just on halfway done. He's going to go for a bit of a push here. Wants to try and make sure that his opponent is being accountable for all of that economy that he's getting up. As you can see, the Marines now pushing forward, stemming up a small group at the front to make sure he can take out any units that are sitting there, and now the tanks will get in position to siege up. Beautiful fungal from Mafia actually catches out two big groups of the bio units that are there, and the Lynx should be able to stream through and catch the rest of this out, but the Marines of Rossi now streaming back across, getting a fungal growth on top of it for their hard work, and now it looks as if that will be the end of that push for the time being, and Rossi is going to have to go again with attempt number 2 very soon. Of course, does keep the medevacs alive, which is always what you want to do, but he did get a hatchery for his efforts, so, you know, it's not all in vain. Of course, taking the hatchery down is quite an inconvenience for Mafia, and behind this, yet again, Rossi has expanded. I love this heavy expanding style that he's been going with here. It's a brilliant testament to the way he plays, always putting a lot of pressure on his opponent and making sure that his opponent is accountable for everything they do. Now, just keep in mind, the creep spread for Mafia is at around about the halfway line here, so he's sitting very pretty. Unfortunately for him, his prettiness is going to be wiped off the face of the map very quickly by these Marines and the Marauders. These guys have almost got +2 on their attack and on their armor as well, so they're going to be sitting in a very nice spot in regards to dealing with any of these Zerg units on the ground. Now, the big question is, does Mafia know about this base? No, he doesn't. He will be able to see actually the flashing from the SCVs mining at the base, but he may not have actually picked it up just yet because there is no blip on his map, so he may not have actually recognized that that's there just yet, especially while he's trying to deal with these Marines through the center of the map. So Rossi has to pick up a couple of the Marines and is in fact going to try and go for a drop. A couple of the Marines on the left side doing a bit of a distraction here, but Mafia, well prepared for everything, has already got some Infestors on the way, throwing down some Infested Terrans, a Fungal, and that should be the end of that drop, and probably even that medevac there as well, I'd say. I don't think he's going to get away. 5 health. That medevac is a bit of a champ right now, but there is a big drop inside the main base of Mafia. We did mention that Rossi loves to do these drops and is very, very good at it. Unfortunately, Mafia, just well prepared for everything around the map, throws down some fungals, has lings all over the place. I would say there is upwards of 100 lings on the map right now. Almost 89, not looking too bad at all there for Mafia. He's just biding his time. He did lose a spawning pool, so that was a bit unfortunate for him, but there is an Ultralisk cavern now done, and Mafia has got one of the big boys on the way. Behind this, he's actually just getting a lot of tech out. We've got the chitinous plating on the way, +3 to Carapace and the melee attack. So those ultras are going to do quite a lot of damage once they start popping out in bigger numbers. But Rossi is trying to still continue to do a little bit of pressure here with the drop. Meanwhile, just massing up, getting prepared on the right-hand side, forming up for an attack on the 4th base of Mafia. But here comes the Ling and Infestor army. There is no ultra just yet, but it is certainly a lot of damage that he's doing there. Able to put quite a lot of hurt on those Marines, having to heal some of those up. There are only 3 medevacs out here. I'm very interested by that, but of course Mafia is going to have to contend with another possible attack coming through to his main base, but he's going to deal with that his own way, now running these Lings down through the left-hand side of the map. He's able to get into the 3rd base of Rossi and is doing quite a lot of damage here, taking out SCVs. Meanwhile, taking a big attack on his own 4th base. He's going to lose that hatchery, and things are going to start to get very interesting because the Infestors are down here. We have one of the Ultralisks as well. There's 2 in production, and these guys are going to get all of their upgrades very, very soon, and Rossi, I think, is prepared for that switch. He's got a whole bunch of tanks out. 3 factories are actually already built and pumping out those tanks, so Rossi is getting prepared for those ultras if I've ever seen, and there we go. These guys have now almost got all their upgrades ready to rumble here, and Rossi is still continuing to push up through the right-hand side of the map. Of course, those tanks are now doing 55 damage to armored units like the Roaches, like the Ultras, and it looks as if Mafia will be able to clean this attack up for the time being, and that is going to be the end of that push for the moment. A couple of units, I'm not sure what's going on. Is there a Rax that's rallied up to the top left? No, there isn't. I don't know what's going on with that, but I do know there are a couple of Marauders that are just hanging out here, having a Kit Kat for the moment. But he is starting to bring in some more of those Marauders. Of course, they also do the bonus damage to armored units. They are now doing 24 with their +2 to their weapons. They've got +3 on the way, but it's still around about halfway done. So there's still about a minute to go on that +3 upgrade for the infantry units of Rossi. Meanwhile, for Mafia, just about to finish up 3-3 on the ground units here. You'll see the Lings go up to 3-3. Of course, the Ultras will go to 5-3 with their extra armor upgrade now done. And now he's just decided he's going to have a quick poke in to see what's going on there. Sees that there's a whole bunch of tanks, can't really get too far, throws away a couple of those infestors. Perhaps not the best trade there for Mafia. And now, as we can see, there is another drop inside the main base of Mafia. He's going to have to contend with a couple of Marines here. They don't have their +3 just yet, and they're not actually all formed up and ready to go. So he will lose most of those Marines, and even the yeah, he does lose the medevac, unfortunately. A couple of good transfuses there from Mafia. Keep all of the queens alive and effectively loses nothing for the trade of a bunch of Marines and a medevac. So Rossi still continuing to mine quite nicely at this 4th base. Of course, this base across to the left was damaged quite heavily and even destroyed there by that counterattack from Mafia. But now Rossi looks to have his own way with his opponent's 4th base. This hatchery is not going to last too long. The Infestor Ultra and Ling army is now just going to try and switch through the left-hand side of the map. Rossi has no vision of this at all, apart from now when that watchtower sees these big hippos now moving down the left-hand side of the map. Unfortunately for Mafia, that's actually probably not the best direction to go to because of the fact that Rossi was sieged up across the right-hand side, and the right-hand side base is the one that actually has most of the mining going on. So now he's going to take quite a lot of damage. The Marauders doing a good job right at the front line there, catching a fungal growth for their efforts, but they do take down one of the Ultras. But now, things are getting a little bit interesting here for Mafia. He's up to 8 Infestors, 8 Ultraliths, a couple of Roaches left over, and a few of those Lings as well. But as we can see, the big issue for Mafia at the moment is he's only realistically got one and, I don't know, maybe a half of a mining base. This one just across to the left-hand side is only just finished up now. He did lose that one across to the right side a couple of times already. But now Mafia just trying to push through the left-hand side yet again. Of course, the Creep is here, which is helping out for the moment, but the Creep Chimbers are all being removed now, and the Marauders are now really starting to mass up now. 19 Marauders, of course, with Stim. That means they're going to do a whole bunch of damage to these Ultras, and Mafia, what is he going to do about this? He's throwing down some really nice fungals. Of course, the fungals doing that extra damage to armored units, but Mafia is stuck in a little bit of a hard spot right now because the tanks are slowly sieging their way across, and it's not as if it's only 3 or 4 tanks like you would normally see in a bio game at this point, where your opponent has normally gone for something like Broodlords or something like that. Because the Ultras are out there, a whole bunch of tanks, and now Mafia has decided it's go time. We've got Ultras sweeping in through the right and the left, but most of them on the left side. Now with the Infested Terrans throwing down all over the place, and with the Ultras now busting their way through. They're taking a lot of heat, but they are dealing so much damage. Look at these guys just pulverizing their way through, and that is the end of most of that army from Rossi. What has he got back at home? We've got a couple of Marines and Marauders and a couple of tanks. Perhaps that battle did not go too well for him. He's now sitting on 131 supply. There was, no, it's just one Marauder sitting up here at the top left. So Mafia is just going to wait a second. He says, you know what? You haven't really established this base too well. I'm just going to wait back for the moment. I'm going to make sure I get out enough infestors to control the rest of the game. Still, does he still actually... He still does not know that this is here, despite the fact there is an Overseer just peeking at what's going on with the minerals. But he certainly should find out very, very soon. Because, I mean, at this point, at the 25-minute mark, your opponent's still defending and still has this type of production coming out. You got to think, whoa, there's something going on here. And it's getting a little bit risky to just sort of plow in through that side. So I would say Mafia might have a quick look at that right-hand side base very soon to see if there is anything going on there. But meanwhile, Rossi is just happy with the fact that that has not been attacked at all, just as of yet. So he's going to be pretty happy with the outcome of that for the moment. Of course, back at home for Mafia, the Spire, has that ever been built? there is no Spire, but I tell you what, he's finally found the base across to the right side. Mafia is now saying, oh, I see what's going on. Takes down the planetary, chomps through the rest of the SCVs as well, and now he says, alright, now you're starting to get on your last legs, and he actually tries to come up doing a little hook maneuver coming up through the left-hand side of the middle section of the map, throwing down some beautiful fungal growths there. Mafia catching out quite a lot of the Marines that were left over, even the tanks and the medevacs in the air as well. The Infestors are doing, they're starting to really get pulverized now, but the Ultralisks are doing still so much damage, and they are still getting, they're starting to get a little bit demoralized themselves, having to retreat. One last Ultralisk is left over, but the thing is, does Rossi have what it takes to continue on with the pressure? I mean, he's still producing a few Marines at a time. Of course, he's got a little bit of minerals left over, but with losing this base across to the right, he's going to be in quite a lot of trouble soon. The interesting part is he's still got a whole bunch of these medevacs out, and now with mass lings starting to push down the left-hand side of the map, I am not sure if Rossi is going to be able to defend this. If he starts losing these SCVs, that could be game over very soon. But Marauder Marine coming in from the side, a big line of SCVs also coming across. Lucky they didn't get chomped by the Ultralisk, otherwise it would have been game over very quickly there. Nice little micro from Rossi to keep those, to take down that Ultralisk, I should say. And things have sort of just reset a little bit for the time being. Rossi, of course, he's in a very precarious position, I should say. He's currently mining with only 23 SCVs at the moment. Of course, he does have a few of those mules he can use, but Mafia is sitting pretty on 60 drones at the moment, and now has a bunch of queens coming out to the battle. Infestors also coming out to say hello. Beautiful fungal growths right on top of the battle, right there, and the infested Terrans are going to polish off the rest of those. That means no more real heals from these medevacs to try and help out with the bio forces attacking in, but Rossi is not done yet. He's going to continue on to attack into this fourth base. He's actually going to deny the mining and may even be able to get perhaps a hatchery down. He just needs to get rid of this Ultralist out of the way, because that guy is in the line of fire. If you're trying to fire at this hatchery, he's like trolling. That Ultralist, I swear, was just trolling. He's just bouncing around, not actually doing anything useful. But Mafia cleans up the attack, and that sort of ends that particular portion of Rossi's attack feature there. He does have another group of Marines and Marauders out. These guys, bear in mind, don't actually have their +3 to armor just yet. I'm not sure where that upgrade has fallen for the moment from Rossi, but of course at this stage of the game, when you're only really mining off one sort of base effectively, he's in a little bit of trouble when it comes to his economy. He has to lift off the command center. It's actually going to burn down in the sky, and there it goes. It's going to fall down. And that could be the end of Rossi very soon here. A good fungal growth will be able to catch out these units, and the Ultralist will be able to chomp through it, but he doesn't actually get it in time. A Transfuse trying to save the Ultra, but it does not get it in time. Last few Marauders, the last-ditch attempt here from Rossi. Goes down the Queens, way out of position. It's not often you see Queens just wandering down towards the southern end of the map, but with a whole bunch of mules, Rossi, I don't know. Could he be able to do it? Let's see. His income is now boosted up to 1,700 minerals coming in because of all of these mules. That is just incredible. So he is going to pump out quite a few more bio units here. The big issue is he won't be able to get tanks. He won't really be able to get too many medevacs over anymore because of the fact that his gas is starting to really run low, especially because he's not actually mining from this one at all. The one thing I'm sure a lot of you would be thinking, why isn't he moving this orbital command? It's an efficiency thing, obviously, is the fact that it would be nicer to have it in the proper spot, but I don't think he can really spare the time right now to push it into the right spot, but who knows. But here comes, I think, what will be the final attack from Mafia now, just pushing in. Infested Terrans, fungal growth all over the place, Lings at the front dealing the damage here for Mafia. The big boys of those Ultras are just down the back, and they decide it's time to hack up that last orbital command, and that, I would say, is going to seal the deal very soon here for Rossi, but he's going to have, again, his last little attack. He's got Marines and Marauders at the top of the ramp. A bunker would be so nice here, but he doesn't really have the time or the money for it. He's just going to try and micro his way out of this sticky situation. If he can perhaps take out the Ultras, then he can maybe get rid of the Infestors as well. But the issue is, with himself being all boxed in here with the supply depots at the side, and with Lings and Ultra streaming in through the front door, this is going to be the end, and we are going to see Mafia up against EG Suppy in the open bracket winners round of 5 of MLG Dallas. Of course, you can catch that match. It's on at roughly 3 AM Eastern Daylight Savings Time, I should say, if you're over in Australia. And of course, wish you best of luck to all of the players, of course, because a lot of these guys, even though Rossi has lost this match against Mafia, he will go down to the losers bracket and continue on playing tomorrow, and hopefully he can make it all the way back up. And of course, good luck to Mafia taking on Suppy, and perhaps Rain or Sheth if he can get through Suppy, and that will be a brilliant fight to see. So good luck to all the players at MLG. Hope you enjoyed this series. It was a lot of fun casting, and I will catch you all next time. Cheers.